Okay, go ahead and go live. All right, I think we are live. We will be getting started here in just a minute. Let me go ahead and share my screen here so that everybody can see that. Give me just a sec to pull that up. There we go. And that should be up and going now. Awesome. Fantastic. Well, hey, thanks everybody for being here. I think it looks like it is about 1 o'clock, so I believe we are going to go ahead and get started. So, hey, welcome to our September 2021 meeting for the Google Educator Group of Ohio. This is a monthly meeting, usually, where we take a look at everything new in Google from the last month. We share Google tips and tricks, and we answer questions related to using Google tools in school. Howdy, my name is Eric Curts, and I am a tech integration specialist at the Stark Portage Area Computer Consortium, or SPARC for short. We're an information technology center serving schools in Northeast Ohio. However, of course, this meeting is open to anyone from anywhere across Ohio or around the world. As long as you've got an interest in using Google tools in school, you are welcome to be here with us. I am joined today by John. John, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, hi, my name is John Mansel-Pleydell, and I am a professional learning group supervisor with the Northern Buckeye Education Council, located in Archbold, Ohio, and glad to be here. I'll try and do as good a job as Stephanie does, but she's got more practice than I do. So I'll try and chime in on some things, but it's great to be here with you this afternoon, Eric.
It is always a pleasure to have you here, John. Sometimes we have other folks with us. Normally, Stephanie is with us. She had other obligations today, and Sarah as well sometimes is able to join us. But I'm very happy to have John helping me out here today, so I'm not totally alone in manning the ship. But we want to always thank Stephanie and Sarah for their contributions when they're able to be with us. For those that are watching live, please feel free to use the chat feature in YouTube to introduce yourself. I see a bunch of people are starting to say hi. I see Peggy and Nicole and Harry and Joe and Kara and lots of folks in there. So thanks so much for being here today. That is fantastic to have you here with us. Feel free to introduce yourself and let us know where you're from. Now, all of the resources that we're going to be looking at today can be found in our Google Doc agenda. What I'm going to do is go ahead and drop a link to that agenda in the YouTube chat for those if you need to pull that up. But for everybody else, if you are watching this recorded in the future, you can always get to this agenda through our GEG Ohio site. You'll see there's a bit.ly link we have for that, bit.ly/GEG Ohio. That'll take you to the GEG Ohio website. And then from there, you can get a link to the agenda document. For example, if I head over to the GEG Ohio website, you'll see there's a link for monthly meetings there on the welcome page. And from that monthly meetings page, that's where you'll find all of the pertinent links, such as today's meeting, September 30th. There is that agenda link. Of course, you can access the ones from previous months as well. And also the video. The live video will become the recorded video. Same links. That'll always get you to that if you need to. Now, this document is editable. So we would encourage you to please feel free to add things to this. There's some sections in here that definitely would lend themselves to that. For example, there's an upcoming events section, and several people have already added some things to that. Please continue to do so. If you know of a training, an event, a webinar, or something coming up that people could plug into, please feel free to add that into the upcoming events section. And then also further on down in the document, there's what we call the show and tell section. There's a spot in there for my show and and tell and Stephanie's and Sarah's and John's, but there's also a spot in there for community show and tell. So if there's something you'd like to share with the group, awesome blog post you made recently, or a cool extension you've come across, or just anything you'd like to share, that would be a great place to put that. And then there's also a Q&A section at the very bottom. So if you got any questions you would like to share with the group, please feel free to do that in the Q&A. You see we've got several questions in there already, in addition to adding questions in there. If you've got an answer to a question, that's awesome too. We would encourage you to fill in your suggestions for some answers to these as well. And we'll get to all of that throughout the meeting here today. All right. Well, with all of that said, let's go ahead and get started into our meeting here. So we've already done the introductions. Thanks again for that. Let's move down to our next section, which is important links. The only one I'm going to draw your attention to is the one we always mention every meeting, which is, if you would please sign in for the meeting. There is a link here to a Google form where you can fill in your information and pick today's meeting. And what that does is it allows me to be able to generate your certificates of attendance. And I usually do that, a few days after the event when I get a chance to run that mail merge, and then usually before the next meeting I check and see if anybody else has filled it in since then. So if you don't get a certificate right away, just be patient. I do try to get those sent out to everybody shortly after the meeting. So appreciate you taking the time to fill that out. Below that, we've got a section on group updates. And this is just to remind you that we do have an email distribution group, a Google group for GEG Ohio. And you're welcome to and encouraged to join that email distribution group. There are directions here for signing up for that. We have over 1,000 members of the group. It is such an awesome way to be able to stay in touch in between our meetings. I see people posting on there all the time, asking a question, sharing a resource. And now you're drawing upon the power of over 1,000 people who can help you with your questions or your needs. So please do plug in that. And again, I will just emphasize again, I know this is GEG Ohio, and we do focus on Ohio, but we are open to anybody. As long as you are interested in using Google tools in education, we welcome you to be a part of not only these meetings, but also our email distribution group. We do have a Facebook group as well. If that is your thing, please feel free to jump into that group and join that as well as another way to stay plugged in and in touch. Awesome. Next up, we've got a section here on upcoming events, just to let you know about any trainings or webinars or things you may want to plug into. A couple of things that I can mention in there. I don't have information on all of these. Some of these things are not things I added, but I will mention the ones that I can speak somewhat intelligently to. One is the Spark EdTech conference that we had back in August. Just a heads up that we still have all of the recorded videos from that available through the end of October. So there's over 100 sessions that we had at our Spark conference in early August. Those were all recorded. Some were recorded live, some were pre-recorded sessions, but for each one of those, you can still get a certificate of attendance for any of those that you'll watch. So you've got another month to continue to explore those. Please feel free to take advantage of those. Another thing that I am aware of in the upcoming events is the Google for Education product training series. Now, Google does this periodically. They've started a new round of these. They're these just nice, quick 30-minute sessions that they run. We're currently in the fall section of those, and there's a link here that you can follow to go out to that page. I would encourage you to register for those. You don't technically have to register for them because, as you can see, they do have the links, here to add these to your calendar. The nice thing about registering for them is you get a nice friendly email to remind you, and that's really helpful because a lot of times I'll get busy and forget. This will allow you to see, to get a reminder as these come up, and you can see they just cover a wide range of things from using CS first to personalizing Chrome in your Chromebook accessibility, on and on down the line. Loads and loads of great sessions over the next few months. These are all completely free. They're 30 minutes long each. You say, well, the time of those just doesn't work out for me. That's okay. Go ahead and sign up for them because, again, you'll get that email reminding you about it. And that email will have a link to the video. And it'll be recorded afterwards. So if you can't join for the live sessions, you can always watch the recorded one after. What's nice about the live sessions is it's easier to chat like we're doing here today, but this is a good way to still be able to get in there and see those. Awesome. So definitely take advantage of that. I do see that Star shared about Ocali Online coming up November 16th through 19th. Thank you so much, as always, Star, not only for being a part of our meetings, but always being such a great contributor of resources to our meetings. We appreciate that so much. This is a premier autism and disabilities conference with thousands of people from around the world. So wonderful opportunity to plug into that. Let's see, other than that, I should mention that our next GEG Ohio meeting is actually not going to be till November. So as far as upcoming events go, we're not going to do an October meeting. Just none of our schedules worked. October ended up being a crazy month, and we checked, and nothing really lined up for any of us, just too many obligations. And so we're going to go ahead and actually push off the meeting until November, and that'll be our next meeting. And we won't have one in December as well with the holiday break. So November, we'll catch everything for October and halfway through November, and then we'll meet back up again in January after that. So just wanted to make sure that was on your radar and you were aware that you're not missing out on anything in October. If anything changes, we'll let you know, but I do believe that is the schedule that we're going to go ahead and stick with on that. And again, there's a few more in here that I'm not familiar with, like the Unison EDU conference. I don't know about that, but thanks to whoever put those in there, I would encourage you to just click on the links and explore those. And see what you can plug into there. Kara asked if the time will be the same for the November meeting. Yes, we always do 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So thanks for asking that, Kara. If we ever change that, we'll let you know, but that has worked out pretty well, at least for us, as our standard time. And again, you can always check that on the GEG Ohio website. If you go there and go to the monthly meetings, if we do make any changes, you'll always see that. So you can see there's the November 11th meeting. I'll get the rest of them in there as well, like January and February and so on, but try to at least stay a month ahead on there so you can plan for those upcoming ones. Awesome. Very good. All right. Well, before we head into our next section here, John, did you notice anything in the chat, or was there anything that you wanted to add on to any of the stuff we mentioned so far as upcoming events or other housekeeping things before we move into the main part of our meeting?
The only one that I haven't put in there is Learn 21, and I was trying to find the information. That is at the end of October. It's mostly targeted at tech coordinators, but there are some teachers that go to that session. It's at the Ohio State Union, and it's put on by Learn 21, and that's their technology conference. And I think it's the 29th of October. I signed up for it, but I don't remember the exact date. But if somebody could find that and put it in there, it's definitely, if we've got any tech coordinators or people that are looking for some more high quality professional development, I think it's a pretty good conference. I'm attending, but not presenting this year.
Well, thank you for mentioning that, John. Yes, I've attended in the past as well. Not going to be able to do that this year, but I've heard a lot of great things about what they've got planned for this year. So yes, if we can get that added into the upcoming events, we'll get some details put in there for people on that one as well. And again, if there's something we missed in there, please feel free to throw stuff in. Again, any upcoming events you're aware of or trainings or opportunities, please contribute those in there. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move into one of the main portions of our meeting each month, which is what's new in Google, because Google is a moving target. There's always new updates coming out, and we don't want you to get caught off guard by that. So throughout the month, what I try to do is keep an eye on anything that gets announced. So by following all of the Google blogs and Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts and things like that, I try to keep an eye out for anything new that comes out related to Google Workspace. And then I throw those into the document. And so throughout the month, you can see this list grows and grows and grows. We're never going to go through everything that's in there. There's just too many updates. So what I usually try to do is bold the ones that really, I think, jumped out to me. And so what I'm going to do is run through the ones that I have bolded and just give a little bit of a blurb, a little explanation about some of these upcoming or these changes that have been announced or have come out, just so again, you know what is happening for your school so nobody gets surprised about these things, but also you can take advantage of these new features as they come rolling out. Now, if we don't mention something that you're interested in here, please let me know. You can throw it in the chat, ask a question, or remember, this is editable. So you could come in here and you can leave a comment over on the side if you wanted to add a comment or ask a question about any of these, and we can certainly come back around and dive deeper into some of these. And of course, all throughout this, John, if you've got any thoughts to add on these, please feel free just to jump on in and give a holler on any of these that you want to chat about as well. All right, so let's get going. Our meeting last month in August, there was a few days after the meeting, so I did include a couple of things that came in after the meeting before we headed into September. One of them was just kind of a fun little thing, and that is to create and share automated quote cards from any selected text on an Android device. Now, this is just Android at the moment, but a lot of times that'll happen and then the iOS option will roll out or vice versa. So this is nothing earth-shattering, but it's pretty cool, I thought. And so if you follow this link to this blog post, there's a lot of stuff in this blog post, so I'm going to skip over a bunch of it. But if you get down a little bit, let me see if I can find where that specific spot was. Oh, here it is right here. And tell you what, let me open up the GIF in its own tab so we can see a little bit better. So this is just a really neat thing. If you're on an Android device and you're reading an article online and you come across a really neat quote that you would like to share with people, a new thing you can do now, as you can see here, is just simply select the text, go to share, and then choose create card from the pop-up. And it will give you all these different styles of a quote card. So it'll take that quote and then it'll give a link below about where that came from. And you can save that image or you can share that out on social media. Really neat way just to be able to, if something inspires you, it catches your attention, cool way to be able to create a quick image to share out with others. So I thought that was pretty neat. Just wanted to get that on your radar. All right, let's move into the September updates now. And again, we're not going to hit all of these, just the ones that I bolded, but you let me know if there's something else here that I'm skipping over that you would like us to take some time to talk about. So one of the first things that caught my attention in September was that Google has acquired a company called Playspace. Now, they are buying companies left and right. They always do that. But this one just kind of caught my attention because it seems kind of similar to some of the stuff that Google already has. And so I'm really curious what this is going to mean for some of their product offerings. So Playspace is a video screen share and whiteboard collaboration tool. You can see a picture of it here. And it sounds like it's got a lot of pretty neat features in there. They talked about how it has rooms and whiteboards and a text scratch pad and the ability to have everybody in the group listen to the same song and lots of other cool options in there. Now, this reminds me, of course, a little bit about, Jamboard, reminds me of Google Meet, reminds me of the new chat tool that Google has. All of those features that we currently have, there's some things that seem similar here. So I'm not sure if Google's acquisition of Playspace was just to bring in the talented employees of that company and then use those folks, to help continue to develop Google's tools, or if they're going to take some of the features from this and maybe this will, be incorporated into Jamboard, and we'll start to see some additional features showing up in there. So just thought that was neat. Curious to see where that goes. Something to keep an eye on in the coming months. All right, next up. Speaking of Google Meet, Google has, let me see if I can, here we go. Yep, Google adds a Google Meet calling feature for spontaneous one-on-one voice and video calls. And so this kind of harkens back to Google Hangouts. So I don't know how many of you guys have been using the Google tools, for enough years that you remember before we had Google Meet, we used to have Google Hangouts. And one of the features in Google Hangouts was the ability to very easily just make a voice call or a video call to another person without having to go in and create a whole Hangout and invite them to it and so forth. One of the key things was the ability to do that one-on-one voice calling. Well, that is getting added to Google Meet. And so that'll be a neat way to be able to very quickly connect with somebody else without having to, create a meet, send them the invite. Instead, right from, it looks like it's going to be launched out of Gmail. Right from out of Gmail, we'll be able to select somebody and even do a voice call directly to that person. So looking forward to seeing that feature come back that we used to enjoy so much in Google Hangouts. Next up, still on the topic of Google Meet, is something called companion mode. And I haven't got a chance to try this out yet, but I think I finally will be able to, because where I work at the Stark County Educational Service Center, we just purchased recently some Google Meet hardware. So if you're not familiar with what I mean by that, in addition to using Google Meet the way we normally use it, you can also, and I think this might be the same link, just a different spot. There it is. There's the companion mode portion of it. And again, I can open up that image in its own tab there. In addition to the way we normally use Google Meet, you can also purchase Google Meet hardware. What I mean by that is it's like, a really nice camera and a really nice, audio system and microphone and a Chrome box that's bundled with it. And so it's like a conference room, bundle with everything you need to be able to do Google Meet from a conference room. Well, companion mode is this new feature they're rolling out for that. And the idea behind it is this: let's say you got 5 people sitting in the conference room and you're all using the physical Google Meet bundle of hardware. Well, the thing is, in a case like that, you want to be able to take advantage of the wonderful camera that's in the room and the nice microphone that's in the room. But what if you then still want to be able to do the normal things you would do in a meet, such as type in the chat and, share resources through the chat and use breakout rooms and things like that? Well, companion mode allows you to use your laptop to join the meet, but not use your camera or microphone. Just use those additional tools like polls and Q&A and things like that in the chat, while it turns, while it uses the camera and microphone from the Google Meet appliance in that room for video and for audio. Haven't had a chance to try it out myself yet, but we just got one of these units there at work. And so I'm going to be interested in trying out the companion mode feature that they've added to that. So excited to see that too. Good deal. All right, next up, a little bit of an update to Google Forms. Nothing too earth-shattering here, but it will kind of be noticeable if you haven't been in Forms recently. The next time you go in, you'll definitely see this, and that is they have moved the settings. And so the settings now, here, we'll zoom in a little bit on that so we can see that a little bit better there. The settings in Google Forms used to be hidden under the gear icon, like a lot of times those things are, and you had to go up into that gear icon to open up the settings in a floating window. Now those settings have been pulled down as a tab right inside of Google Forms. So you got your questions and responses like always. You now have a settings tab over to the side. All the same settings are there. So it's not like, there's new features within the settings, just a different layout for them. And I think that's helpful because sometimes, folks may not have realized where to go to get into those. I think it seems more logical, more easily accessible to have those settings just as another tab there. It is, a little bit of a different layout once you get in it, so it may take just a minute to get used to. Now, wait, where do I go to, turn on this feature or that feature? They're all still there. You might just they've just been rearranged a little bit, so it may take a moment to get used to finding where all of those new settings are at there. Right, very nice. Oh, I did see that Matt said that he tried the new Google Meet hardware and was really happy with it. Awesome. Good deal. And again, please continue to throw things in the chat. Anything you guys have questions about or things you want to ask about or share about, that would be wonderful. Star asked, with the companion mode, would it work for people that are hybrid, virtually only, as well as in person? So the companion mode is designed for somebody who's in the room physically with the Google Meet hardware. Yeah, if you're, if you're somewhere else, if you're connecting from home or something like that, then it wouldn't apply because, you're going to be using your camera, your microphone, inside of Google Meet. The companion mode really is just, yeah, if you're in the same room as the Meet hardware and you want to use the camera and mic from the physical Google Meet appliance you have there, but still want to use your laptop to be able to chat and do polls and stuff like that. That's how the companion mode works with that. Good stuff. All right. Let's see what we got up here next. Next up, some Google Sites. There's a couple of Google Sites things that we had some updates on in this last month. So one of them is the ability to restore just a specific page from version history rather than the entire site. So the ability to have version history in Google Sites, that in itself is not new. We've had the ability to restore, but to do so, we were restoring an entire site. Now we have the ability to be a little more granular with that and be able to go in and just restore in a specific page where something has been, deleted or edited by mistake. So helpful feature in Google Sites. It gives us a little bit more granularity in our ability to restore things that might need to be changed. Speaking of Google Sites, the other update that came out shortly after that was the ability to do custom themes in Google Sites. So basically what this means is that you can go in, and I'll see if open up this in a bigger window. There we go. What you can do with your themes now, instead of using just the pre-made themes, and there's not that many of them. I think there was like 6 themes with a couple variations of each. Now in Google Sites, you can create your own custom theme where you can go in and, oh my goodness, the amount of stuff you can micromanage in there is crazy. As you can see here, color and text and brand images and navigation, and down to little itty bitty little changes in there. Now, why you would probably do this most likely would be if you were trying to come up with a consistent theme that you want to use perhaps for your school district. Maybe, the color scheme is going to reflect your school district or the conference that you're making a site for, things like that. So being able to go in and really micromanage this theme and customize this gives us a lot more control than we've had in the past in Google Sites to make the look and feel of the site more reflective of what you would like. I've not tried that out yet, but excited to poke a stick at that.
And I'm interested in that one, Eric, because if you remember when we first got Google Slides and there weren't that many custom themes that you could have. And so when you were looking at a slides presentation, it was like everybody was using the same template. And you say, oh yeah, I've seen this one before. And it wasn't that easy to design your own themes, but it's kind of been the same for Google Sites, that we had a limited kind of, and it's the new Google Sites is a lot better than the old one was as far as the visual appeal. And I started messing around. I don't know, I think it might have been, was it last month that they did where you could put images in the expandable text? I seem to remember there was
that collapsible, expandable text now doesn't have to be just text. It can be images in there as well. Yes, you're right.
So I think if you haven't looked at Google Sites as an option, I've even started seeing some teachers starting to use it for digital portfolios for their students, and it's very easy to use, and I definitely recommend people give it a try. If you haven't looked at it in a while, they've really added a lot of features to it.
And if you haven't, you definitely need to, in the sense that, remember, the old classic sites is going away. And we finally have come upon the time when that's going to be happening. I believe our official scheduled time for old classic sites to shut down is the end of this year. So the end of the calendar year. So end of December. So you probably want to check and see, do you have any Google Sites you've created in the past using classic sites that need to be converted over over to the new Google Sites. And it's an easy process to do. If anybody has questions on that, I'm happy to dive into that a little bit deeper as well. I've had to go through and do that myself. I know people gave me a little bit of teasing about the fact that for our Spark conference, yes, we used the old classic sites for that. It was more of just kind of like a fun, one last hurrah. So I did go ahead and keep using classic sites this year for our conference, knowing this would be the last chance to be able to do that. But I have been little by little, one by one, going through and converting over loads and loads, because we've got so many sites created over the years, and I've been converting those over to the new sites. But if you have not done so yet, you really do need to do that, so that the time doesn't go by in December and then you're unable to make that. And it's a really simple process where you can go in to the and I can show you real quick if you want to see. I'll just sign into this one. I won't actually convert this one over at the moment. We're going to leave the conference alone until the end of October for sure, when when we're done with those recorded videos. But yeah, basically, if you go into your manage site option in the old Google Sites, you'll see there's an option over here on the left that says convert to new sites, and that allows you to go in and start that conversion process. And it's really simple. You can use the exact same link you've had in the past. If you're like, oh, I'm worried, well, I have to update all the links. Nope. You can still use the exact same link, so people who still have that old link can use it and they'll get to the new version of it. Heads up, things are going to look a little different. It's definitely not going to, all things are not exactly equal between the old and the new sites. So you're going to need to go through and clean some stuff up. And there are some features that just never did make the trip over, like, a file cabinet page or the announcement tool. Some of those things, are not the same or not available in the same way in the new version of it. But again, hopefully all these new features we're seeing with Google Sites will make that transition a little bit easier for folks.
And Ryan has shared in the chat that there is a great admin tool for this, and that you can convert them in bulk, which is nice. So that's a nice feature.
That's good to know, so that, as you get close to that final date, if there's still some that have not been converted over from the admin side, the ability to just go through and boop, convert over the rest of them. Good to know. Thanks, Ryan. All right, next up, we've got an update for Google Meet on captions in Google Meet. Now, this one is for live translated captions. So there's a beta that has rolled out now. And so if you're interested in signing up for that, you can follow the link to that blog post. And there's a link here where you can sign up for the beta. So what this is for is, we all know you've got captions in Google Meet. You click on the little CC button at the bottom, and you get live captions, which is wonderful. Well, what they're rolling out is the ability to have those live captions translated into a language of your choice. Now, at the moment, it looks like they've only got a few: Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. I'm sure they'll be adding more languages over time. But what you could do is go into your settings. If you're in the beta, go into your settings and turn on the caption translation option and pick the language you want them translated into. Now, for you, this won't affect anybody else, but for you, while you're in Google Meet, as the captions come up, you would see them translated into the language of your choice. So excited about this. I think this is great. I do want to remind you, though, that there is a workaround to this. If you want to do this right now and you're not part of the beta, and that is, I do have a blog post here that talks about that. You can follow that link out to that. And this is just using a built-in feature in Chrome to do this. So if you're using Google Chrome, there's actually an option right in Chrome where you can go in and say you want to translate everything in your browser in that particular window. You want to translate that into a different language. You can start by saying translate to English. And then after you do that, you can click on the little Google Translate button that opens up, and you can pick a different language. And when you do that, it'll translate everything in the Google Meet screen. So the menus get translated, the chat gets translated, and the captions get translated. So I've been doing that, been sharing that for quite a while. That one, I think that was back in January when we shared that particular blog post. So what we're getting from Google now is more of a built-in feature of Google Meet to be able to do this translation without you having to do this workaround. But the workaround is really nice. It's a great way to be able to get that translation right now if you don't want to wait for the beta to be available to you and eventually become a permanent feature. Awesome. All right. Next up, we've got an update to Google Docs, and that is the ability to add image watermarks. Now, I'm not surprised by this because, let me get that link here. Oh, hang on just a second here. Oh, come on. I don't know why my link is not opening up here at the moment. I lost my link. Somehow my resource link, it says resource link, but that's okay. It's not popping up at the moment, but that's fine. I'll explain what that is. So in Google Docs, maybe, I don't know, a couple months ago, we got a new feature, which is the ability to add an image and push the image behind the text. Well, once I saw that feature get added, I thought, well, right away, well, a good use of that is for watermarking. Well, they've now added an official watermark feature. Thanks, John, for grabbing that. I don't know why my link was not working there. You are a savior there. Thank you so much. There we go. That's a lot better now. Let me go ahead and open up that image a little bit larger and see if we can see that a little bit better there. There we go. And so what we're going to be able to do is from the insert menu, choose watermark, add an image, and then that image is going to be put on every single page of your Google document as a watermarked image in the background. A lot of times this can be useful if you want to say, hey, this is a draft document. You don't want anybody to be confused that this is not, something that's finished yet. You could have an image in the back that says draft, or if it was something private and confidential, or like in this example, they're just showing you using a logo for your organization and have that be a watermark in the background. It's a feature that Microsoft Word has had forever and ever and ever. And I'm glad to see that Google has now, gotten some parity in that by getting that feature available inside of Google Docs. Again, wasn't surprised when I saw that coming out as soon as we had the update, like a month or so ago about the ability to put images in front of and behind text, which we've never had that wrapping ability before. And once I saw that, I said, yep, that's a good use for that, is for watermarking. Awesome. All right, what's up next? Next up, we have another change in the wording that Google is using in their admin console. We saw this same idea a couple months back with Google Slides, and I know we talked about that with Google Slides. In Google Slides, you used to have the ability to go in and edit what we called the master slide, and they changed that to slide template. And now a similar sort of change is happening in the admin console by renaming whitelisted domains to allow listed domains, which makes a lot of sense. It's more inclusive language there, and actually makes, it's more understandable overall to have, a blocked list and then an allowed list rather than like a white list and a black list. And so I have not seen that change yet in the admin console. I was just in there the other day. It still does say, as it always had, whitelisted domains, but be aware that change is rolling out. So when you get in the admin console, for those who do spend time in there, you will see that update coming out in the near future. Next up, another Google Docs update, and that is a comment size change. So in the past, when you've added a comment to a Google document, it's always been a very fixed width as far as how much space that document could fill up. And let me see if I can make this a little bit larger here, so we can see a little bit better. There we go. Now, what's going to happen when you add a comment is, first of all, they've made the default size of the comment box much larger, but it's also responsive to the size of your screen. So as you increase or decrease your screen size, it'll increase or decrease that comment box there. And basically the idea is just giving you a little bit more real estate to work with there. So if you're leaving a lot of information in the comments, it's going to be a lot easier to be able to see that, as it's going to fill up more space And like I said, also being adjustable as you change the size of your screen. Couple more updates here. These two I just added here today, saw these earlier this morning. One of them is the idea that Google Lens is going to be built right into the Chrome browser. Now, they also mentioned about it getting integrated into the Google app browser on iOS as well. What caught my attention was the fact that Google Lens is going to be built right into the Chrome browser. Now, if you're not familiar with Google Lens, normally I think of it as the feature that is part of Android and iOS. It's built into Google Photos. There's a standalone Google app, Google Lens app on Android. What Google Lens does is it allows you to take a picture of something. And then when you take a picture of it, it basically looks up that image and says, hey, this is what that is. So like, I'd used it if I'm, out on a hike and I come across, a mushroom or a flower or something, I don't know what it is, take a picture of it with Google Lens and it says, oh, this is, a such and such, flower or mushroom or whatever the case might be. You can use it for a lot more than that, but that's an example. Well, the cool thing is they're building that technology right into Google Chrome. And what it's going to let you do, and let me pull up a picture here so you can see, is you're going to be able to right click in your Chrome browser and you're going to be able to run Google Lens on any image in the Chrome browser, or even just a part of the page, like if there's just a portion of an image, and then you can drag your mouse to select a certain portion of the image, and it will run a Google Lens search on it. Now, why is that valuable? Well, I think a lot of it comes down to helping users, especially our students, be able to find out more about an image, to help understand the source of that image. If they found an image online, you're like, is this really what it says it is? Or, has this been manipulated? Because it's so obviously so easy to change an image or to misattribute an image and say this picture is of something other than, what the, caption is saying it is. So when it comes to being able to evaluate the authenticity of information we find online, this helps extend that out to images as well. So yeah, there's other ways to do this. You could do a reverse image search, or you could there's other tools out there, like there's a great website called 10i, and 10i allows you to do a reverse image search as well. This just makes it even easier just to right click on a picture or select a part of the picture and let Google Lens go search for that and let you know, here's what that is a picture of, or here's all the places that image has been used before, so that you can figure out, yep, that's what they're saying it is, or no, actually, that is not really what that's a picture of. Here's where that came from. So neat to have that option rolling out for our students, for us as well too. All right. And then the last thing in the updates. Now, there's a lot of other stuff we've got here. So I kept the updates a little bit thinner this month because of the amount of other things that we've come across in the last month. But the last one that I had bolted here for something for us to mention is a teacher guide that Google just rolled out today for Google Arts and Culture. And so this link here should take you to that PDF file for that teacher guide. I love Google Arts and Culture. I think it's a fantastic website. If you're not familiar with it, the idea is Google's basically trying to digitize all arts and culture from human history and make it available for people to access. Now, certainly there's a big arts component in the sense that Google has scanned in, thousands and thousands and thousands of paintings and sculptures and drawings, but it's also culture as well. There's whole sections in there for social studies teachers that look at, different historical events and historical people with primary source documents. And I guess that's one of the key things about arts and culture, that if I've ever had a complaint, it's that it has so much content that it can get overwhelming. It can be a little bit hard to realize, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize arts and culture had this feature or that feature or whatever. So this I'm excited about. It is a teacher guide to help us make better use of the Google Arts and Culture site. And it's a big teacher guide. This is 52 pages long, so a little overwhelming in itself, I would say, but what a great way if you wanted to do a training on arts and culture to be able to use this as a resource to make sure you've got all the information you want to be able to share, or if you just want to learn more about it yourself, what a great way to scroll down through here and be like, again, I didn't know it did XYZ, and you'll be able to see all of this information in here to help guide you through that. So do check that out if that is something that you either use arts and culture and you do trainings on it, or you've been meaning to learn more about all the features that are built into it. So excited about that. All right. Well, that gets us to the end of our What's New in Google section. Again, there's a whole lot more stuff we're going to take a look at here in show and tell and Q&A, but let's just pause for a moment. And John, I'll throw it back to you again. If you noticed anything in the chat that you thought we should mention, or if there's something you wanted to add to any of these or anything I skipped over, anything you would add to this, John, before we move on?
I think you covered it really well, Eric. That, like you said, there is a lot of things and we don't have time to talk about everything, but there are no other questions in the chat of the things we skipped over. So I say we keep going.
Sounds fantastic. All right, guys. Well, if you do have questions, let us know, but we will go ahead and move into our next section, which is show and tell. Now, remember, we still do have a Q&A that we're going to hit later. We always like to save that for last because we never know for sure how many questions might come in. So if you've got any questions to add, please feel free to do that. And we will get to those at the end of the session with as much time as we can for those. But let's talk about show and tell. So in this section, I'm going to share cool things I've come across in the last month that aren't really a Google update. So it's not like, hey, here's a new feature, but it's maybe, you know, a neat video or blog post or a cool extension or something like that we've come across. I'll give John a chance to do the same as well. And we'll also see if you guys have added some things into our community show and tell. So in my section here, and again, I will not go through everything in here. There's a lot of stuff I've come across. So I'm just going to pick some of the key ones that I want to highlight here. I always like to share anything that I put on my Control-Alt-Achieve blog. And so I've got a couple of things from the last month that I've shared on there. One is a new Halloween activity. Now, I've done drag and drop poetry activities with Google Drawings for a long time. And I just recently did one for Halloween with that coming up here. So there's a link here that'll take you out to that blog post. I do mention in the blog post that there's also one for winter time, there's one for Valentine's Day, and there's one for spring. So I've done these in the past, but went ahead and did a version for Halloween. There's a quick little video you can watch as well if that's helpful. Here's the link to the template, but basically here's what it comes down to. It's a Google Drawings template where there's words on the left and the right. On the left-hand side, the words are just general use words. On the right-hand side, they're Halloween-themed words. And basically, the students just grab those words and drag them from the right and the left onto the central canvas there in Google Drawings, and they can start creating their Halloween drag and drop poetry, kind of like the magnetic poetry kits that we've, had physically, in the past. And when you get all done, you can then download the final creation that you've made right there from Google Drawings. And of course, it's nice because this is digital, so you can, make as many copies of a word as you need. If you need, more than one, copy of a word, no problem, just copy and paste it. They're also completely editable. All these are just text boxes, so you can click inside of any of them and change the words, make something plural, add a new word, whatever you might need to do. So feel free to use that if you would like to. In addition to that, I did put a reminder in this blog post about some previous Halloween activities I've done, like the Google Slides Build a Jack-o'-lantern and the Google Docs Halloween Rebus story. Those are all linked into the blog post and linked here as well. So feel free to have fun with any of those, either for yourself or with your students. Great way to encourage creativity, computer skills, drag and drop, copy paste, but also language arts skills as far as, telling a story, writing a poem, things like that.
I love how you never let a Halloween go by without creating something new and awesome, Eric.
Well, I try to. I try to ask. Can't do it all the time, but I've tried to do that over the last few years. It's one of my favorite holidays, so I'm a little biased, perhaps, on that. Yeah, awesome. Other things that I've got on my Control Alt Achieve site recently. I did get a chance to once again be on the 10-Minute Teacher podcast with Vicki Davis. Love Vicki Davis. If you don't know her, you've got to connect with her. She's at Cool Cat Teacher on Twitter. Vicki's been a wonderful source of information and an education leader for so many years. I think this is my third time being able to be on her podcast. This time we did a little blurb about some of my favorite new updates that Google has put out in the last few months. Now, if you've been attending, of course, all of our GEG meetings, you already know because you're in the know on these things. But this is a great way to help people get caught up quick on some of the most recent updates with Google tools. Having said that, though, the most important thing is just to point you to Vicki's podcast in general. She always has somebody new on, and they're short. They are 10 minutes, so you're going to get a real quick, helpful information from her. Here's a link to her site, and you can subscribe to her podcast in a bunch of different ways. So it's a wonderful education and educational technology podcast to get plugged into. And then the last thing that I put on the Control Alt Achieve site was a video about some updates to Screencastify. Now, if you are a Screencastify user like I am, I've loved using Screencastify for many years. It's a great tool to do a video recording of your screen if you're doing, an instructional video, or if you're having students explain their understanding of a concept. It's such an easy tool to use. And yes, there is a paid version, but the free version is fantastic. The free version allows you to record 5 minutes at a time and saves it right to your drive. Simple and easy to use. Well, they've rolled out some new features that are really slick, and these include interactive questions and viewer analytics. So the interactive questions feature, this is a lot like Edpuzzle, if you've used that tool before. So basically the idea is when you record a video with Screencastify now, when you get done, here, let me scroll down to the section with the actual questions. There it is, interactive questions. There you go. When you get done recording your video, you can now go in and click on an interactive questions button after you've recorded the video. And basically it'll play your video back for you. And anywhere along the timeline for the video, you can stop it and click that you want to add a question. And you can add questions into your video. And they're just multiple choice questions, but nevertheless, you can add multiple choice questions into your video. And then when you've done that, when the students now go to watch your video, it's going to pause at those spots and boop, pop up that question. If they answer it right, it'll let them know they got it right. If they get it wrong, it'll tell them what the correct answer was at that point, but it'll also record all of that for you. So you can then go in and see all of your students and how they answered each of those questions. So, and this is part of the free version. This is not part of their paid version of it. Now, yes, it is, you can use it with either, but the point of what I'm saying is this is part of the free version of Screencastify. What an amazing tool to have available in there. So that's one of the big things that's new with it, is being able to add those interactive questions. The other new feature, if I go back up to the top here, is the viewer analytics, because we're not always sure, did my student, actually go and watch the video? And so now when you've created a video, when you've recorded a video with Screencastify, you'll get a new option for how to share the video with your students that will track their viewing of the video. So once you've done your Screencastify recording, what you're going to notice is when it goes to the normal page, it says, hey, here's your video, good job. Instead of having what used to be a button you would click to copy the Google Drive link for the video. Now it's still being saved to your Drive. That hasn't changed. But instead of using the Google Drive link for it, there's now a new, what they call watch page link. And that link, if you copy and give to your students, when the students go to watch the video, instead of just popping up as a video inside of Google Drive, it's going to, when you copy that watch page, it's going to pop up on a special watch page that's a lot easier for the students to be able to view. It fills pretty much the full screen. It includes an adjustment for playback speed, a picture-in-picture option, but most importantly, it tracks their viewing so that you'll be able to go in and see if your students have actually viewed the video as well, and even if they've viewed it more than once, for example. So neat to have both of those part of the free version of Screencastify. I think I've got a video. It's not terribly long here, an 11-minute video. So if you want to see all of that in action, you can check that out on the blog. So those are some things that I have put on the blog over the last month. Everything else in my show and tell are things that other people have created and shared that I've come across and wanted to draw attention to. So I'm, again, not going to go through all of these, but I will mention a couple in here that I think are worth drawing attention to. They're all awesome. So please do click on all the links here, but a few that I'm going to mention. One is rainbow word art in Google Slides. Now this is from Meredith Akers, and anytime Meredith puts anything out, I'm going to share it. It's pretty straightforward because if she creates it, it's high quality. And so what Meredith did was talked about a neat way to use the gradient tool in Google Slides when you are filling in word art to be able to do a multicolor gradient to make these amazing rainbow word art options when you're adding text into your Google Slides. She's got a whole section here where she goes step by step and explains how to do this. So you can check that out and see how that is done. Nice animated GIF here that walks you through that step by step. But if you're wanting to jazz up your word art in Google Slides, thanks to Meredith for some explanation on how that works. Another thing that I wanted to draw attention to is some more details on self-checking Google Sheets by Mandy Tolan. Now, Mandy has shared this sort of stuff in the past, but I appreciate so much that she has continued to share this. You can see she's got a link here to an earlier similar pixel art tutorial she did. But the idea is what Mandy is doing is using a Google spreadsheet and then creating basically a quiz inside of the Google spreadsheet, and then using some conditional formatting rules so that as the students fill in the answers to their questions in the Google Sheet, if they get it right, what it will start doing is filling in this progress bar here at the top to show that they got it right. And it'll, fill in from, I think, 0 to 10. She's got 10 questions. So just an easy way to do a self-checking quiz for students. Again, this is not going to be like a Google form where it grades it and sends you the results. It's giving the student immediate feedback right away, whether they got something right or not. And if they didn't, then they can try it again and continue to work through that self-grading quiz. A couple other things that caught my attention over the last month. I was not aware of this Chrome extension called Toucan, and I thought this one looked kind of cool. It's an extension to help you learn a new language. And so the idea with this Toucan extension is that if you've got that installed, anytime you come across a word that you're not sure about, you can select it and Toucan will translate it for you. And that sounds like, well, that seems pretty normal. We've got Google Translate. But what's different about it is not only will it translate it, but you can then save those words to a bank. And then what you can do is you can pull up the extension, and it will go through those words with you and quiz you on them. So if you come across words that you're trying to learn, you can do that. And also, I love this, it will automatically translate words on a page into the language that you want to be learning. So when you're just reading a regular article, peppered throughout it, you're going to see words that have been translated into the language that you are trying to learn, and you can click on them and quiz yourself on what those words mean. So just neat. I had not seen that extension before and thought it would be a cool one to share. Somebody had shared that recently. Let's see, what else do we have here worth mentioning? They're all worth mentioning, but some other ones to throw out. Came across this recently, Game Snacks. Hey, we all need a little break now and then. Game Snacks is from Google. It's from Google's Area 120. So Area 120 is a group within Google that does a lot of experimental, like 20% time type of activities. Well, they have put together this website called Game Snacks. And the idea is it's just a whole bunch of games, I don't know, over 100 games here that all work within the Chrome. Well, really, they work within anything, but they work within the Chrome browser. So as we moved away from like Flash, and Flash is no longer supported in the Chrome browser, a lot of, Flash games, of course, aren't going to work anymore. And so all of these are HTML5 games that will run really on anything: Chromebooks, Macs, PCs, phones, tablets, and there's nothing terribly educational about any of these, but they're all good, clean fun. And what's nice is that can be, something that if you want to say, okay, when students are done with their work and they, want to have something that they can do, this could be a website that you could approve. If you're using some filtering things and say, oh, we've blocked most game sites. Well, you could say, we're going to go ahead and approve this one and allow students to use this to be able to play these quick, casual browser-based games. I apologize ahead of time for any time you lose playing these games over the next, few days. So check out Game Snacks if you would like. Lance, I love Lance Yoder. Lance shared this Google slide template that caught my eye, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. So it's called Blockout, and this is a game he developed inside of Google Slides that helps students work on multiplication. And so the idea is what the students are going to do, according to his directions here, is they're going to, for example, roll a pair of dice, or they can use cards. And basically what they're going to do is get two numbers. And then the idea is they're going to take those two numbers and create a square that represents the area of those. So I don't know, for example, we'll grab this one here, and we'll say I'm the red, let's say I'm the red player. And I could come in here and say, okay, I got, 4 times 6 were my numbers. Well, then what I would do is say, okay, I'm going to put this box in, I'm going to make it, 4 wide, and I'm going to make it 6 tall. And then I could even, put in like equals, 24. And then the idea is what I want to do is I want to place that anywhere on the grid that I would like to. So I can put it anywhere I want as long as it's covering, in this case, 4 by 6. Well, then it's the next player's turn, and maybe they're blue, and then, yellow or orange, and then green. Well, the idea is you can't overlap. And so you're trying to figure out where's a good place I could put this so that I can, take my numbers and still fit them in on this grid. And as the game plays little by little, different players are going to get knocked out of the game because they'll get a combination that there's no more room to put that in there. I thought, how clever, what a fun game to practice multiplication skills and be able to play that right inside of Google Slides. So thanks, Lance, for developing, but most importantly, for sharing that template. Another great blog post I saw this month was from Tom Mullaney. Again, these are all just EdTech all-stars, so many awesome people who are so generous with their sharing. Tom did a great blog post on 7 tips for using Google Docs. You may think, oh, Docs, I know everything about Docs. Tom's got some great stuff in here, some really neat things. The one that I want to draw attention to that I thought was just really cool was an update that I had slipped by. I didn't realize this until Tom pointed out. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And that is that when you put YouTube videos, a link to a YouTube video in Google Docs now has a preview panel option. So let me see if I can show you this. Let's do this. We'll try this out. We'll try this out and see if I can demonstrate this here for you. So let's do, example video. I should have done this ahead of time. Sorry, guys. And let's say I grab the video that I had for my Halloween drag and drop thing. So let's say we come here and let's copy my video link. So we'll copy my link. We'll head back over here and we'll put that in. Okay. So with, Hopefully this one will work. If I picked a bad one, I apologize. Let's see if this will. Oh yeah, I must have picked a bad one. And I'm not sure why. Sometimes I've noticed it doesn't always work right away. So I may have to pick another one that will demonstrate this better. We'll just take a look at Tom's example here for right now. But when you add a video link in and you hover above it, you'll now get, in many cases, and again, I'm not sure why it doesn't work for everyone. Like I'm not sure why my Halloween one didn't show up. I may try another one real quick to demonstrate it for you. But when you hover above it, you're going to get an option to open a preview panel, which basically means you can have a picture-in-picture video right inside of Google Docs, so you can watch the video without leaving the document. Let me try another one here. And again, I apologize. I don't know why that one. Let me grab the Screencastify one. Let's try that one. Let's see if that one works better. We'll copy the link and we'll put that in. We'll try that. All right. So let's see. Oh, there it is. Open preview. Yep. Okay. So you notice in this case, if I hover above this video, which is for the Screencastify one, and I hover here, you'll see it'll say open preview. And then I can click on that, and what it will do, and I'll pause it. There we go. It'll open the video right here inside of Google Docs. And I've got now oops, sorry about that. Let me do that again. I just have to pause it. And then you can play that video and you can watch the video right there while you're working on the Google document. So this is a nice way to be able to let a student maybe watch an instructional video while they're doing an activity inside of Google Docs without having to jump back and forth, but also without having to go to YouTube itself. And, not that that's a problem, but, sometimes with comments and suggested videos and other things like that, it's nice to be able to just watch that. So it gives us a new way to be able to watch videos inside of Google Docs, which is pretty slick like that. Awesome. All right. Anything else for me to mention here? Let's see. Oh, yeah, definitely should mention this. Google announced some updates to their level 1 and 2 exams. Now, I don't know if you guys have done the Google Certified Educator program for level 1 and 2 exams. If you have in the past, you're going to see quite a difference in some of the changes they've made to the exams for level 1 and 2. If you've never done this before, this will at least give you a little bit of an idea of what to expect now. So there's a lot of links. These are all provided by Google, and you can explore each one of these to learn more about. But here's the gist. In the past, if you took the level 1 or 2 exam, it was a 2-part exam. The first part was a multiple choice part, which, very, very understandable, just ABC type of questions. And then the second part of the exam was a scenario-based portion. And so what we mean by that is it would give you 10 or so scenarios, and you would have to actually do them. Like if it said, create a Google spreadsheet and, add this, data and sort it by a certain, field, or make a Google Classroom and add a certain assignment, or create a Google site and put this picture on the site. You actually did these scenarios. That has been changed now. And so the scenario portion has been removed from the tests. The Google Certified Educator Level 1 and 2 exams now are just the multiple choice portion. That's all it is. Now, some of them are drag and drop type of questions, so maybe I shouldn't just say multiple choice only, but they're all very objective type questions. So either answer multiple choice or drag and drop these answers to put them in order, something like that. There's no longer the scenario portion of it. This has caused a lot of questions among the Google Certified Educator community. A lot of people really liked the scenarios in the sense that it was a great way to really test, do you understand these concepts? Not just can you answer a question about it, but can you do it? There were definitely some struggles that came from that. Part of it was Google had to send you a unique account to use just for the exam. And of course, being able to grade something like that is a lot more challenging than just grading a multiple choice type question. And so now if you sign up for the Educator 1 or 2 exams, you don't need to get like a special account. You'll just use your regular Google account that you always use, and you'll be able to open up the exam and just take it as an objective multiple choice type exam. So heads up, I think, certainly there's some mixed feelings about this. On one hand, people are happy to say, hey, this is awesome that, it's less hurdles to jump through for people that were maybe struggling with being able to manage that other account they sent you. Now a little more streamlined, but at the same time, I completely understand where people are coming from who miss the scenario option because it was a little more rigorous for the exam. So just heads up, if you are looking at doing level 1 or 2 exams, these resources here will help support you in seeing, okay, what are all the skills that are going to be covered? What are some sample questions? How do I register for it? All the FAQs and some tasks for you to try out in preparation for those exams. So Google's done a really nice job putting together all these support materials for folks that are interested in doing the exams.
And Eric, I'll mention that my organization, we have Google certified educator cohorts that we offer, and we are going to continue to do the instruction in that with the scenarios in place because we think that they are valuable learning tools. When a teacher immerses themselves in the learning like that, I think their takeaways from it are going to be greater as far as when they actually start using that in their classroom. I think, and we see the benefit of that. So we're going to continue to have the scenarios in there, which will more than adequately provide you with preparation to take the test. And that's for people that are Northern Buckeye members. And we are going to be offering those same courses through the Professional Learning Collaborative of Ohio, which should be rolling out next year. And I think those courses will be available in the click-through format, which doesn't require an instructor but also doesn't give you the opportunity to ask questions, which I think is the nice thing about having the scenario-based and having an instructor that facilitates it. So I think people need to have options. It's called blended learning after all. So you need to have a variety of different options for how you learn the content.
That's great. And, I think you're right on the money there, John, to continue to use the scenario idea in the preparation, because there's a lot of value that comes from that. So even though the test itself is going to be more objective, more multiple choice or drag and drop type questions, the real value isn't just in taking the test. The real value is in, what you learn in preparing for it and those skills. And so I'm glad to hear that you are keeping the rigor, and I'll be doing the same. In the past, I've done a lot of Google boot camps where we prepare people for level 1 and 2, and I'm with you. I don't see, changing that to just say, hey, here's a training session to get you ready for a multiple choice test. Instead, what we want to do is make sure that people really feel comfortable using the tools, but most importantly, how they can use them to affect teaching and learning in a positive way. So good to know. All right. Last stuff I'm going to mention before, and again, I'll turn this over to John for some show and tell as well. But the last couple of things I'll mention, I did want to let you know that the Expeditions Pro app for Android has launched. So one thing that was a big change over the last year was Google sunsetting their Expeditions program, as well as Google Tour Creator, which can be used to build your own expeditions. This made people pretty sad. A lot of folks, myself included, were really sad by this because Expeditions was an awesome tool, and I loved Google Tour Creator for being able to build your own. Well, there's a company that has stepped up to try to replace this, called Expeditions Pro. I've been keeping an eye on them for a while, and they've been, in beta for a long time. They have now been able to release the Android version of their app. The iOS is still coming soon. So this was really encouraging. I wasn't sure, when that was going to come out. I haven't had a chance to try out the Android version yet. It's on my to-do list of things to try out, but just a couple of days ago, I saw a post mentioning that they had officially, rolled out the Android version of this. And the idea is to be able to replace what we lost when Google Expeditions was shut down, so that people will be able to use, for example, a VR viewer with their phone, or you could just use, your phone on its own or any mobile device to be able to take a 3D virtual reality tour, but also to be able to create your own, which I think is such an important thing, to give students another way to tell a story, another way to explain a concept by creating a VR tour of that. Now, we can still create tours in a sense, through Google Earth, but to have the VR capability, that is a great feature. So again, haven't had a chance to try it out myself, but for anybody that was mourning the loss of Expeditions and Google Tour Creator, wanted to make sure that you were aware that this Expeditions Pro company is making progress in that. And I don't know if anybody has tried it out yet, but wanted to get that on your radar. Last thing I'm going to mention is just a little bit about Chrome extensions. So we have recently, at the Stark County ESC where I'm at, we've been going through a process of trying to decide what Chrome extensions we want to officially approve, because unfortunately, sometimes Chrome extensions can be malicious. Maybe, there was a Chrome extension that was a good one in the past, but it, got bought by somebody else and they put malware into it, and then Google has to pull it from the Chrome web store. Sometimes that happens. And so we want to say, well, maybe we need to tighten the screws a little bit and say, okay, what Chrome extensions are we going to officially approve? And so I've been, in the past, I've had a Google Sheet where I've had a list of recommended Chrome extensions. I've spent some time over the last month trying to update that. And so I just wanted to share that out with folks. This is my Google Sheet with about 120 Chrome extensions that either I've used personally or that other people have vouched for. I try to check each one of these out. I would love to know extensions that other people have used that you think I should add to this list. So you're always encouraged to drop me an email with your list of extensions, or if you've got a similar spreadsheet or slideshow put together that has a list of extensions that you recommend for your school. I'd love to see them. I would actually encourage you greatly to share those with me, because I want to make sure that I continue to update my list and that we have a really nice collection of trustworthy, valuable extensions for schools to use. So just wanted to put that out there. If you are looking for some suggested extensions, that's the list that I have currently been curating up to this point. All right, well, I'm going to pause there. And as we mentioned, Stephanie is not with us this month. She usually is, but she does always put out an awesome digital update. So her link is there for her digital update. Please check that out if you would like to. But John, how about if I turn this over to you? I'm going to go ahead and stop. No, would you like to share your screen, or
Sure.
doesn't? Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And then you can go ahead and share, because I know you had some things that you wanted to chat about here today.
Okay. So, I just wanted to mention back with Stephanie's stuff, I signed up for it after the last meeting. I thought I need to be in that, get that digital update as well, because again, you can't, it's very hard to keep track of everything new that comes out. And some people are really good at keeping track of all that. And Stephanie is one of those people. You do have to join this Google group in order to be able to then get access to the update. And that was the piece that I missed. But once you've joined the group, then you'll get the update will come in your email, and you can link to it and see all the cool things that Stephanie's been doing that particular week. So I am enjoying being part of that. What I want to talk about is, and I have to give props to Chris Malanga, who works for me. He's on the call, he showed me something called the Rocket Book, and he gave us all in my department a very small Rocket Book as a Christmas present. I think it was last year, might have been the year before last. And what is it? And I don't know if many people have ever seen it before, but it's a Rocket Book is essentially, it allows you to take your written notes and to put them up into the cloud. Let me just click this link here, and we'll go to the website. And so I linked this first one here. There's two things that you can use for this. One is if you want to put your notes from a notebook. So I actually have mine is actually that the spines are at the top. So it's kind of more of a flip. But what you do is you write in the book, and then you take a picture of it with the app, the Rocketbook app on your phone, and then you can choose where it goes up into the cloud. And then the beautiful thing is that once you get done with it, you then you can erase the notes out of your book. It's made from this very durable kind of plastic, but and you use it's a pilot. Where is it? Here it is. So I don't know if you can see that with the blurring, but it's put in front of my face. It's a erasable pen. So it has a little eraser on the end of it there that you can use to erase the stuff. And then if you make a mistake, and then when you get done with writing in the book and you've put it up into the cloud, then you can erase it like you can see in that picture there. What's really neat about it is the places that you can put all of the content. So you have these little areas at the bottom, and you'll see in the bottom of a page is actually a QR code, which is how the app knows when you take a picture of it what to do with it. And then you can pick one of these different destinations here, and you can see them coming up here in this animation. So if I choose the bell, in my case, when I choose the bell, it sticks it up into a folder in my Google Drive. And in fact, I've got that folder is right here is one of my folders. It's actually the notes folder. The bell goes into the notes folder. And I actually have a copy. Here's the meeting that we had, the Tech Integration Leaders of Ohio meeting we had a couple of weeks ago. And this at the top here is, in fact, if I make it bigger, you can see those are the actual handwritten notes that I made in the meeting in my book. And then when I scanned it with my phone, it put it up into this folder. And then I came up into here and I renamed it. It doesn't have a really nice way of naming the files. They usually have like the date and the time that you made the scan, but you can go in and change the name of that. But then below that, I've turned on the option here to have it actually do optical character recognition. So it's taken the information from my handwritten notes and it's converted them over. Now, I think one of those, this didn't work well. That should say NWOET, I think, tech time, but it came through as NWUET. So my handwriting may not be as perfect, but in the testing that I've done, and maybe you might be asking, why would you want to do it this way? I think the problem that I have in trying to do where you type your notes when you're in a meeting is that I find it a lot more difficult to concentrate on what's happening in the meeting if I'm multitasking and actually typing. But if I stop and take time to actually take some notes with my Rocketbook, and then I can scan those in later on, and then I don't need to worry about if I left the notebook at work or if I need access to something, because all my notes are up in Google Drive and I can organize them inside of there. Now, the second thing that they have inside of here is something called Rocketbook beacons. And what beacons are is it's the same concept, except you have these little orange things that stick to a whiteboard. And so you put them up in the corner of the whiteboard, and then anything that you write on the whiteboard, when you take a picture of it, there's a setting in the phone app that you choose. Either you're going to scan a notebook or you're going to scan a whiteboard. And the beacons just really just tell it that here is the target that you need to scan between. And then you can take those notes and then put them up into Drive. You can drop them into a Google Slides presentation, or because essentially it's a picture. So, and again, Chris pointed this out to me. He works with his son and they have a side business where they do some video production, and they do a lot of their planning and everything together. And they do the brainstorming on a whiteboard. and then they can put their notes up into the cloud, and they both have copies of it. So if you haven't checked those out, and the best thing about this, I think, is that it's actually really cheap. These beacons, a set of beacons is $15, and the notebook that I got, the flip notebook, was about $24 on Amazon, and that included an erasable pen at the same time. So if you're interested in this idea, and a lot of teachers, I think, they get used to taking notes, and a lot of times, and of course, if they're using whiteboards and they happen to be using the old-fashioned kind of whiteboard with a whiteboard marker, then you don't need to lose all of your work. It's really easy to scan that up and put up into the cloud. So that's the first thing I wanted to share about, which was the Rocket Book. And then the second thing, Tech Tips Tuesday, is a product that we have at Northern Buckeye. It comes out every Tuesday, and we have all of the people in the professional learning group are working hard to come up with blog posts. I'd like to say that we didn't steal your idea, Eric, about blogging and having a blogging platform as a good place to put things. But from our perspective, having a weekly newsletter, which is really what this is, if you have a blog that's the back end of that, the really nice thing about that is that you can search for things, or things actually get tagged, and then you can search for things by tags. So, and encourage everybody, this is free. It's a newsletter, but we like to say a bite-sized piece of information. So Troy, who joined us only last month, has written his first article for us here, which is about using the Chrome Music Lab Songmaker. And so we had some things that you showed us, I think, in the meeting last month that had added to this suite of things that was in there. But again, we're trying to find things that can be quick hits for teachers, that they can take something and use it quickly in their classroom. So for music teachers or STEAM teachers, the Chrome Music Lab might be something that you could use for that. So I encourage you to sign up for that mailing list and find all of the other things that we have in there. I know we're going to have articles coming up on the new Screencastify that you mentioned, some really nice features in that. And again, encourage people to go to that website. The link is right there, and you can click on it and sign up for it. And you'll get a message in your inbox every Tuesday with a tip from one of our people at the Professional Learning Group. So that's all that I've got to share for this month. Thank you, Eric.
Well, thank you. And yeah, those tech tips you guys put out are fantastic. And I absolutely will make sure that I get signed up for the reminders so I don't miss them as well. That is great. Awesome. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen again, and we'll take a look at a few more things that we've still got here today. So next up, after John's show and tell, was the community show and tell. I'd still encourage you guys to add more things to this if you've got something to add, but wow, thank you to everybody who has already done so. I'm not sure who to credit these to because you usually come in anonymously, but I just want to thank you in general, everybody, for anything that you've added to this list. The first two here are some blog posts from Steve Wick's blog on Know Your Why. Steve, great guy again. I tell you, just EdTech luminaries all around here. Steve has an article here on the Carmen Sandiego games that are built right into Google Earth. So if you did not know that, inside of Google Earth, if you go into the Voyager section of Google Earth, they've got different tabs in there, and one of them is a games tab. And the old Carmen Sandiego games got modified and built right into Google Earth, so you can play those games to work on your geography skills. And then Steve has another blog post here with templates for digital agendas and calendars. If you're looking for some calendar templates for the 21-22 school year. After that, we've got a link here to the PAECT Northeast organization that is hosting a Fall into Tech Tools next Thursday, October 7th, via Zoom. There is a link here to take you out to their site. Sounds like they're going to have a lot of sessions. You can see there's quite a few topics that are listed there that are going to be shared in that event. And actually, I'm going to be working with these folks, not for that particular one, but actually heading there later this evening to do an event with the PAECT group. So excited to be working with them. And then I see some more Ocali resources here. The Here to Help from Ocali. Looks like we have a bunch of topics here that are in their video gallery, covering a wide range of, again, accommodations and accessibility support tools. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that was from Star. Thank you very much. And then there's a quick tip somebody shared that if you're using Google Forms for quizzes, in the event that you perhaps have never paid attention to this particular slider in the settings, there is a slider you can adjust to allow users to view the results summary at the end of filling out a form. Just a friendly reminder to turn that off if it's a quiz, because if not, that would allow a student to be able to see the answers submitted by other students. It would not give their like names, but it would show like a summary of, how many people answered, A, B, C, or D, for example, or the different text answers that were submitted. This is a good thing to have turned on if it's like maybe a survey and you're like, okay, after you take the survey, do you want to see who's currently winning the vote for favorite lunchtime food or something like that? It'd be fine for a survey to have that on, but very understandable why you would not want that on for a quiz. So thanks for that reminder there. And then I see we have a Twitter post from Neonet, and thanks so much for sharing that, with a really nice handy infographic of a collection of wonderful resource tools. And one of the first ones in the list here that's being highlighted is the Ohio Educator tool. So I went ahead and grabbed that link and put it down here below so you'd have quick access to it. Ohio has a website where they are curating educational tools, and they're approaching 100,000 curated resources. Looks like you can search here or narrow down through grade level, subject area, item type, and so forth. So what a wonderful curriculum library being curated by Ohio. So thanks for all that stuff. You guys are great. We really appreciate you sharing that. Well, folks, that brings us to our last section of the meeting, which is Q&A. Now, again, if there's anything else you wanted to add to the earlier ones, we'll do one more pass through later and see if we missed something. But the Q&A section is a spot where you can ask questions of this group. And hopefully between the different people attending today, somebody will be able to provide some support for you. So let's see what are some of the questions that have popped up here for our meeting today. The first one was asking about a blog post I did back in the summer on 40 Google Updates. So Google had their, what they call it, their Anywhere School. Sorry about that. I had to think for a second there. Their Anywhere School event earlier this summer. And so, yes, I did do a blog post that kind of summarized, I think it was back in June. Let me see. Yep, that was back in June. The 40 updates that they announced at their Anywhere School 2021 event this summer. If you haven't seen that one, it's great. There's lots of really awesome stuff they shared. I just curated it together. So this was, content that Google had shared at that event, and I tried to pull it together in a way that hopefully would be meaningful for you. The question was, is it possible to update that? Because a lot of them said, coming soon, and the question was, we'll have some of them come. My response to that would be probably the best thing to do would be to take advantage of Google's What's New in Google Workspace page, because so much of the stuff, is changing over time. I might not be able to accurately keep that blog post up to date to reflect that. So I put a link in here to a page that Google maintains, which has a table of their updates. And what you can do is you can come in, for example, here, I'll let me zoom in. It's a little hard to see probably. Let me zoom in a bit on that. You can come in, you can click, for example, on the release date here. If you want to sort that by release dates, you can see like, here's some September updates. And it will tell you what has now gone live. And so it's a little different than a lot of the stuff we share, which is coming soon. These are things that, okay, they have now arrived. These are things that have now rolled out or are in the process of rolling out right now. And so you can scroll through here and see the things that have gone live, and there's a link for each one of them that will take you to the Google blog post that explains more about that. In addition to sorting by the date to see what has actually gone live, you can also narrow it down by the product. If you're saying, well, I was really curious about the Google Meet updates. Okay, we'll go in and just narrow it down by Google Meet. And now you can see which things have gone live in Google Meet over the last few months. So that would be my suggestion to make sure you're getting the most accurate information on what has gone live recently. All right, next up, there was a question about originality reports. So the question here says, are there any additional resources to show how originality reports can be set up within a Google domain, looking to use these reports against student work in the district? So that's a really important clarification there. I know we've had originality reports for many years in Google Classroom. If you're not familiar with them, originality reports are the plagiarism checking tool that is built into Google Classroom that you and your students can use to compare a student's work to basically all the web pages on the internet and let you know, hey, there's a match here. What you wrote in this paper is, verbatim, word for word from this, website, and you either need to properly cite it or you really do need to put this into your own words. Well, the question here is about a more recent feature, which is the ability to not just do originality reports where you're checking against other web pages, but comparing them against other student work. So the idea behind this is, what if a student were to make a copy of a paper their older sibling wrote, for example, so they had a brother or sister a couple of years ago in your class, and maybe the student just makes a copy of their paper and submits that. Originality reports are now able to compare student work, not just to everything on the internet, but also to documents that have been submitted within your school. This is an enterprise feature. Of course, I still say enterprise, Education Plus, sorry. This is an Education Plus or a teaching and learning upgrade feature. So the ability to do a what they call a school match, that's the actual word for it, is school match. So if you don't pay for the upgrade for Google Workspace, the Education Plus or the teaching and learning, I apologize, this would not apply to you specifically. You have originality, you have the regular originality report, but just not the ability to compare it against student work. So the question is there any additional help on how to get this set up? So the short answer is yes. At the bottom of the document, I filled in some information because there was quite a lot. I didn't think it was going to fit in the box. So I did add this stuff at the bottom about the two key things you need to do, which is enabling the school match and also enabling the shared drive options. As long as you've done both of those, and this kind of talks you through that, you're good to go. There are a couple of other little caveats and things to be aware of. So let me do this. Let me just show you real quick the main gist behind this. And then if you want to go deeper into it, let me know, and I'll be happy to chat a little bit more with you about that. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to pull up my admin console real quick just to show you where you would go to make sure you are able to take advantage of the new school match feature that is built into the originality reports in Classroom. So the first thing is you would need to turn on the school match feature. It is not on by default. So if you go to the admin console, again, obviously you need to be, have access to your admin console. So this would be for whoever manages your Google Workspace domain. You would go into apps, and then from apps, you would go into Google Workspace, and from there, you would then go to Google Classroom. Once you get into the Google Classroom settings, you'll scroll down and you'll see a section called Originality Reports. And inside of that, you'll see school matches. Now, again, this is just for Education Plus or the Teaching and Learning Upgrade. It's got that little flag next to it to let you know that's an Education Plus feature. But you do have to come in here and turn this on. So just be aware this may not be turned on by default. So that's where you go to say, you know what? Instead of just regular originality reports, I also want to do a school match. I want it to be able to compare against what other students have submitted. So that's the first thing. You do need to turn that on. Now, key thing that I want to mention here, and this is included in the agenda. So if you're looking down at the bottom, I do go into a little bit of a extra blurb about this. You want to make sure that when you're turning this on, you only want teachers to be able to run the school match. Students can always run an originality report if you've turned it on for an assignment, which is good. We want them to run originality reports because they're not meant to just be a gotcha kind of thing. We want them to be something that students can use for their own proactive self-editing, to run an originality report on their own writing to see, do I need to fix something? Is there something I didn't, paraphrase properly or whatever? But we don't want the students to be able to do a school match on that and be able to, see other people's writing within the school. So the key to this is you want to make sure that this is only turned on for your teachers. Now, what does that mean? Well, this is built off of the Google Classroom teacher feature, shall we say. And so if you don't know what I mean by this, in the classroom settings, there is an option here to decide who is a teacher. If you say anybody in your domain can be a teacher, then by turning on School Match, your students could run a School Match originality report just like they're a teacher. My guess is that's not the case. I bet most everybody here says, to be a teacher, you have to be a verified teacher, or you may say it's okay to be a pending teacher. The point is, either way, this whoever is a teacher is controlled by a special Google group, and this Google group includes anybody who's been verified as a teacher. Well, if you're doing that, if you're saying, you have to be a verified teacher, then you're fine, you're in good shape. If not, if you're saying anybody can be a teacher, or if you allow pending people to be qualified as teachers, then the key is when you go into this setting to turn on School Match, don't turn it on for your entire domain. Drill down to like your staff OU and just turn it on for your staff OU, or turn it on for the whole domain, but then turn it off for your students if you have a student OU. Just wanted to clarify that. So that's the first piece of it. The second piece is making sure that there are two settings in shared drives that you want to make sure are properly configured. Because what's going to happen is once you've got School Match turned on, Google is going to create a special shared drive. And that shared drive is going to hold a copy of every single thing that students write that gets submitted through originality reports, and it's going to build up this giant database of things to match against. So what you would do for that is you would again head to your admin console, you would go into the apps, but this time you would go to Drive and Docs instead of Classroom. And inside of Drive and Docs, you're going to go to the section on shared drive. So let's see, make sure I'm in the right place. Sharing settings, and there it is. Under sharing settings, so drive, sharing settings, and then shared drive creation. The key here is that you don't have checked the boxes for, there's one that says prevent users in your domain from creating new shared drive, and there's one that says prevent non-members of the shared drive from accessing files in the shared drive. As long as they're unchecked, you're okay. The problem is if you check them, it'll break this because you want non-members of the shared drive to be able to access the files, meaning that you want a teacher to be able to run an originality report, even if they're not a member of the shared drive, and still have it do the comparison. So as long as these are unchecked, that's what's important. If they get checked, it would end up breaking the ability for that teacher to run the school match portion of originality reports. Now, as long as you do that, you're good to go. Hopefully that's enough and you'll be comfortable with just those things. If you want to know just even a little bit more about it, so the idea is once this is running, once you turn this on, once you've turned on school match and you're sure the shared drive settings are all correct, what's going to end up happening is, and I'll open up my drive to show you here, there's going to be a new shared drive that gets created. So let me go to my drive, let me open up my shared drives, and here it is. There's a new drive called Originality Corpus. That is the name of it, Originality Corpus. And you do not create it. Google creates it automatically. And then it will create a year, and then it will create inside of there, it'll create folders for all of your Google Classrooms. And anytime somebody runs an originality report, it'll make a copy of the student's report or their writing, and it will put their document into this, a copy of it. So the student still has their original. These are all copies. It'll make a copy of their paper, their story, whatever it is that's getting checked against, and it will start building this corpus, as they call it. Now, it will take a little bit of time, and I don't know what the critical mass is. I'm not sure, but you have to have, and I apologize, I've not been able to find out the answer to that. You have to have a certain amount of content in the corpus before the match starts working. Like it needs a critical mass. And so I don't know what that is, but don't be surprised if you say, hey, Eric, I turned it all on. I'm still not getting any matches. It does require for this to build up to whatever Google decides is the tipping point for this to now start being a valid database for it to compare against. Now, this originality corpus, no, you won't see it automatically because it creates the shared drive, and then it's just there and it's available for the originality report to use. If you want to access it, though, you can. And the way that works is, again, you would go back to the admin console. You would go back to apps. You would go back to Workspace. You would go back to Drive. And then what you would do is go down to Manage Shared Drives. And this will show you every shared drive in your entire domain. Well, obviously, there's a bazillion of them in here. But if you go far enough, you'll find, I guess I could just type in a search term to narrow it down. You'll eventually find one called Originality Corpus. And there it is. And what you can do is you can go and click on Manage Members, and you can add, for example, yourself to it. And that's what I did. So this Originality Corpus drive gets created, and nobody but Google has access to it. But you can come in here and click Manage Members, and you can add yourself, which I did. I added myself as a content manager. Now, as soon as I did that, it now showed up in my shared drive, so I have access to it. Now you say, well, Eric, why would you want access to it? Well, the point is that will allow you to troubleshoot things. If you need to go in and see if there's a problem, or if you want to add more content to it, you could do that. You could actually drag and drop and put files into here to build up the corpus as well. Whew. So it's a lot of stuff, and maybe that's way more than you guys wanted to know about all of that. So I apologize if I went a little overboard on that, but it's a good question that I don't know is documented all that well. Sounds like I probably should do a blog post on this at some point, but I hope that gives you a little bit of a better understanding of the idea behind what's happening behind the scenes. If you have questions on that, let me know. I'll be happy to go in a little bit deeper on that, but I probably belabored that enough as it is. So I will keep on moving, but just wanted to give you guys some details on how that new feature works. All right. Next up, there was a question saying, does anybody have any special recommendations on how to configure your admin console if you've upgraded to Education Plus. So if you're now paying for G Suite for Google Workspace, you're using what used to be Enterprise, now it's Education Plus. Is there anything you should be aware of, any special tweaks? And I would love to hear what other people suggest. This was my original thought, was basically just be aware there's some new settings that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And those are mostly, as far as things you should be aware of, Meet and Classroom. For example, in Meet, there are settings for live streaming and attendance tracking. And for Classroom, there's the school match setting. So for example, with Meet, if I go back to my admin console and I go back into apps and I go back to Workspace and I go down to Google Meet, what you'll notice is anything with the little purple flag, that means it's an enterprise thing. So for example, under Meet video settings, some of the things you may want to consider would be, for example, do you want to allow your users to live stream their Google Meets? And do you want to turn on attendance reporting so that after a meet is done, the moderator gets a Google spreadsheet sent to them with an attendance report of the meeting? Those are features that are specific to the paid version and would be something you may want to consider going in and saying, how have we got those set? Have we turned on attendance reports? Do we want to let everybody stream as well? And by stream, what I mean is like we're doing right now, doing a live stream rather than having people inside of the meet with you, kind of like I'm doing with Zoom right now on YouTube. You can do the same thing with Google Meet. You can stream it live for people to watch without being inside of the meeting with you. Those were the ones that came to my mind right away. Now, there's a way more other cool things you can also do with Enterprise that get more into the admin end of it as far as running reports and things like that. But this would be stuff if you're saying, what are some settings that would definitely, impact our teachers? The Meet and Classroom settings. Those would be some I would take a look at. There was another question here about end of year cleanup for Google Classroom, saying if you remove a student from the class, what happens? The gist is if you take a student out of the class, they still have access to all of their files from the class. So if they wrote a report, did a slideshow, they don't lose any of that. That's all in their drive. The key is there won't be a member of the class anymore. So they would not be able to open the class. They would not be able to see the stream, the details of the assignments. They could not get back into the class. And also their grades do get removed from the class because they're no longer in the class. So they would not show up on the grade tab. We got a question here about, is anyone letting kids access Android apps on the Chromebooks? And sounds like that's been a little bit of a challenge for some folks. So thanks for Toby and Carol for sharing that information over here. I think for the quick chance I've had a chance to look at what they said here, I would agree that you do not want to just turn this on and let it be an open season to install whatever people want, because yes, there's so many, how many hundreds of thousands of Android apps in the Play Store that could get installed, and that could definitely use up space on your Chromebooks because it's getting installed locally. Those are Android apps. They're actually going to be put on the Chromebook. I would say probably my key thing would be aware of some of the valuable Android apps that students could use on their Chromebook. And what I would suggest would be the Google Classroom Android app. That would be my number one recommendation. As much as I love Google Classroom on the web, the mobile version, the Android version of Classroom, has everything that the web version has and a whole bunch more features. I actually did a blog post about this some point years ago to try to tell people about how valuable this was. Let me grab that one for you here. Here it is. So this is from several years ago on amazing mobile features of Google Classroom. So when you use the Android version or the iOS, either way, but on a Chromebook, you can use the Android version. It includes things like digital handwriting. Instead of just, typing in a document, you can write on top of PDFs, documents, images. It allows, the student to be able to draw pictures or, write their math out by hand rather than trying to type it up. And then also you can use the camera feature to take pictures and record videos right inside of Classroom to easily submit those for assignments. And there's several other features as well. But that would be like, I would recommend the idea of having an approved set of Android apps. And one of the #1 ones I would mention would be the Google Classroom Android app. It really adds some awesome additional features to Classroom that are not included in the web version. Yeah. Next up, there's a question about wanting to limit the time given for a quiz. And I said I saw that form limiter exists, but it's not on Eric's recommended list. Oh, just for clarification. So my recommended list earlier here, this is just extensions. And so this is Chrome extensions. Form limiter is not an extension. Form limiter is an add-on. So that's, definitely worth talking about what add-ons should be approved or not, but that's a whole different class of things. Add-ons are in your add-ons menu, where extensions are up in the top right-hand corner. So that's why that's not on my list. Form limiter is a great add-on. I certainly would approve of that, but that's why it's not on the extension list. The question, though, about limiting the time for a quiz is a little bit more complicated than that, because here's the idea. With a Google quiz, with Google Forms, there's never going to, well, right now, there's not an option where a student would start a quiz and like a timer would just start counting down saying you have 30 minutes to complete this. Google Forms does not have that feature. What form limiter does is it basically just turns off the form at a certain date and time, not like 30 minutes after you've started it, but like Thursday at 4 p.m. It'll turn the form off. So if and I may be misunderstanding the question, but what if what you're asking is, hey, I want to give you a time limit. You've only got 15 minutes to take the quiz. I am not aware of any tool that does that. Form limiter and these other form add-ons can turn off the form, which of course you can do that as well. Like if I go into Google Forms and I create a new form, all that it's doing, and I'll zoom in to show you, all form limiter is doing is it's going to the responses tab and it's flipping off this switch for you. It's just basically turning off the form. That's all it's doing. You could do it yourself. Form limiter is just doing it for you. Like you go in and say, I want this to be turned off Thursday at 4 p.m. And form limiter just turns the form off for you. So it's not that you could do this yourself, but form limiter is just doing it for you. I just wanted to explain that it's not like 30 minutes after you start taking the quiz. It's not like that. It's just going to turn it off instead at a certain, date and time. I think if you need that kind of control, at the moment, you're probably going to have to use a different product. I don't think Forms is going to be the right match for you in that case. You may want to look at, some other assessment tools or LMS tools that have more robust features for limiting a time on filling out a quiz. All right. And then I think we have one more question here. I've not seen this one yet. What's it say? We're preparing for future auditing for short-term independent study student work samples. Is the Google Classroom folder good to archive their work? If not, any suggestions? I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I think the Google Classroom folder is certainly a good place to go because it's going to have, links to all of the students' work. I don't know though. I guess not sure. I don't have a good answer for you right off the top of my head. I think my biggest question would be when you go to archive, what tool are you using to do that? Because the Google Classroom folder technically isn't going to be holding their work. It's going to be holding shortcuts to their work. Their actual documents are still in the student's drive. The Classroom folder just has shortcuts that link to their files. So I guess my question would be the archiving tool, is it able to use those shortcuts to grab the actual, real files or not? So I'm not sure right off the top of my head on that. If anybody does have any suggestions, that would be great to add those in. Shoo. All right, guys. Well, I think we did pretty good. We've got a couple of minutes here left as we start to wrap up. So let's do a couple of things as we begin to wrap up. John, if you have seen any questions or comments that popped up in the chat, definitely let us know. I'm going to scroll back through the document again and see if there's anything else that we've missed. As we're doing that, though, I want to remind you guys of just a couple of quick things. One is if you have not had a chance yet to sign in for the meeting, please do remember near the top of the agenda, looks like it's on page 2. Yep, on page 2, there's a link to our sign-in form. Would definitely encourage you to fill that in so that I can send you a certificate of attendance for the meeting, and we can also keep track of our numbers of who all attended the meeting. I want to remind you that we will not have a meeting in October. Our schedules just didn't line up, so the next Google Educator Group for Ohio meeting will be November 11th. And you can always get to that information from the GEG Ohio website at bit.ly/GEG Ohio, where you can always check our upcoming meetings and see the dates and times and the agenda link and all that stuff once that's in there. I have not created that yet for the November meeting, but once that's in there, you'll be able to access it. And I certainly would encourage you, if you have not joined our email distribution list, definitely do that, because that's another great way to always get reminders. We'll be sure to let you know, dates and times, but it's mostly a wonderful way to stay connected with the 1,000+ Google using educators around Ohio and elsewhere through that group. All
Eric,
right.
there was
John, go ahead.
There was a couple of things in the chat. Peggy George mentioned that Tammy Lynn did a great session in the Shake Up Learning Back to School conference, which is on Google Arts and Culture, and it's a free conference, and those videos will be available until October the 30th, so you can still register for that. So if you're interested in Google Arts and Culture, that would be a good one to check out. And somebody followed up with that it is actually possible, Rocketbook tip, I guess, if this is becoming a hashtag, is if you do hashtag and then type or write a title and then hashtag, it actually automatically makes that the title of the document when you upload it to Google Drive. So it's automatically naming my my note with whatever I put between the two hashtags. So that was a nice tip. And I tested that and it worked. So thanks everybody for the tips. Thank you, Eric, for all of your information. And I think that your curation skills are pretty mad as far as what you were able to do with those extensions. And I always enjoy seeing other people's lists of things, because it's good to go through them and see things that you might have missed.
Well, thank you so much for being with me today, John. And thank you to everybody for being here. You guys are what make this so valuable. This is a fantastic community, and I appreciate so much everybody being a part of it. So we will see you guys back again in November, and hopefully between now and then connect with you in many other ways, especially through our Google group for GEG Ohio. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. Take care and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Take care, everyone.